Welcome to our Weather Impact Report, where we take a look at the top weather stories here in Georgia and around the nation. I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss. We had a wild weather week. Tornadoes carved a deadly path through the heartland, leaving behind shattered homes and shattered lives. Floodwaters rose with little warning, sweeping away roads and stranding entire communities. And out west, wildfires fueled by dry winds and record heat forced mass evacuations. From the Midwest to the Gulf Coast and the mountains of the West, we've been keeping up with it all. We started the week with quiet weather across the country. By Wednesday, all of that changed. Heavy flooding impacted residents in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, forcing some to flee their homes. A state of emergency was in place in one of the boroughs there as people in low-lying areas were ordered to evacuate on Tuesday night. Local schools were dismissed early. Some roads were closed and an emergency shelter was set up for those in need. Some residents were seen wading through deep waters in order to escape the danger. Local officials say this was the worst flooding they've seen in the last 30 years. While it was flooding in Pennsylvania, an early season heat wave was hitting Texas with triple-digit temperatures, and a series of extreme floods and fires stretched across the country. Ryan Chandler reports from Dallas.
Tonight, a dangerous dome of oppressive heat, scorching Texas ahead of schedule.
Heat can be extremely dangerous, especially if you don't prepare ahead of time.
At this Dallas EMS station, first responders are preparing for weather's most common killer.
We kind of keep an eye out for younger children, elderly adults.
We're used to the heat in Texas, just not this early. This is an unusual heat wave, giving many areas their first triple digits of the year.
And it's not just in Texas.
This heat is just awful.
Dry heat fueling wildfires in Minnesota. More than 33,000 acres have burned.
It's just too hot, too dry, too much wind.
But as parts of the country bake, the East Coast is getting drenched. From D.C. to New York, some of the country's busiest airports are facing delays because of thunderstorms and rain. It follows major flooding in Virginia. Fire rescue teams said they believed they found the body of 12-year-old Jordan Sims, who was washed away in rushing water Tuesday.
Obviously, this is a very tragic situation.
In Maryland, flash flooding forced evacuations. Water rushing up to the second story of this elementary school. Children carried through the water, rescued on boats. Scientists say extreme deadly weather is becoming more common.
Both of these, extreme heat events and heavy downpours, are precisely the two kinds of extreme weather phenomena that are most clearly linked to climate change.
A link scientists warn could make major weather events more severe. Ryan Chandler, NBC News, Dallas.
And all of that happened just by Wednesday. Take a look at this video. You're looking at the Camp House wildfire that destroyed multiple cabins in northeast Minnesota. The fire blackened 750 acres and continues to grow. At least 3 cabins and 1 garage were destroyed. The fire was reported to be burning in mixed forest vegetation with large quantity of spruce budworm-infested forest stands. More than 50 firefighters were on the ground last Monday to build fire lines and work towards containing the fire with the help of multiple fire suppression aircraft dropping water from above. It continues to be a difficult task, made even harder by the weather forecast. Temperatures have been near 85 with complete sun, low humidity, and a steady south wind that will gust up to 25 miles per hour. Evacuation notices were issued Sunday night for some residents. As of May 17th, the fire has only been 31% contained. Minnesota state officials are painting a dire picture of the wildfires now consuming massive acreage in 2 counties. They are calling the weather and fire conditions unprecedented. Governor Tim Walz and top public safety officials met with reporters Tuesday afternoon, detailing the state and how they are responding to 3 significant wildfires that have burned nearly 20,000 acres so far. Jennifer Hoff has more.
Just took off.
Fire season in Minnesota coming early and fast.
This heat is just awful.
Sparking several that exploded overnight in size.
When the governor calls in the, National Guard and everything, it just, it's bigger than what you're seeing.
Kate Maher making sure everyone on scene has the right supplies.
12 cases of water.
As dozens of structures have already burned down.
I know they would be there for me if it was further down the road and stuff.
Fire officials closing roads and evacuating nearly 200 people since the fires first broke out the last 2 days, totaling more than 20,000 acres in conditions they're calling unprecedented.
It was bound to happen. It was just too hot, too dry, too much wind.
Jeff Conklin isn't sure his home is safe. Making him more upset is likely having to leave his dogs behind.
Might have to deal with Red Cross and put these guys in a temporary shelter until we get access to go back into the house. But they don't understand it.
There are dozens of first responders trying to keep everyone safe, even though it could be a number of days before they really get a handle on things.
It is stressful. You know, it's a high stress dynamic environment, and I just wanted to say support has been outstanding.
Hurricane season begins on June 1st, and last week we saw several reports from the National Hurricane Center as they prepare for the season to begin. But FEMA says they're not fully ready for the storms and the damage that could be coming. An internal review shows FEMA is having trouble working with states and dealing with new rules that could slow down response. It also points to low morale and confusion about FEMA's mission. Since the start of the Trump administration, FEMA has lost about 30% of its full-time staff, mostly because of layoffs and buyouts. And FEMA has also been helping thousands of families after devastating tornadoes. This week's severe storms added to that unfortunate reality. Communities from the plains to the southeast have been dealing with the aftermath of severe storms, and in some places, cleanup is just beginning. A tornado touched down in western Wisconsin Thursday. The tornado hit the New Richmond area, causing damage to some structures there. Luckily, no injuries have been reported. Those same storms reportedly produced 1-inch hail as the front moves through. And a suspected tornado also toppled a large silo and damaged farm buildings. The National Weather Service is working to confirm if the damage is indeed caused by a tornado. High winds snapped trees and power lines, leaving residents in the dark. And large hail was also reported during the height of the storm.
I'm happy to report that at this point we really have had very little in the way of injury. We've had one person that was transported to the hospital for some injuries here in the city of Juneau. I believe there may have been another minor injury or two that have occurred, but have not heard of any other reports in either city, which is a fantastic thing when you consider the severity of some of the damage that we have seen.
The severe weather across Wisconsin not only brought high winds and heavy rain, there was also hail. More than a dozen vehicles were damaged by hail Thursday night in Eau Claire. The damage to these vehicles that you're seeing on your screen took place at the NBC affiliate WEAU. The hail was reported up to 2.5 inches in diameter. Auto shops in the area say they were getting flooded with calls from people who had their windshields destroyed. Insurance companies are also trying to keep up with vehicle and home claims from the hail damage. Thursday night storms did not end in Wisconsin. Across the lake, in Lake Michigan, fallen trees were everywhere in Holland, Michigan. This area of West Holland sustained some of the worst damage. Large oak and beech trees, many feet in diameter, were toppled over, blocking roadways, crushing cars, and destroying houses. In one cul-de-sac, several houses were completely ravaged by dozens of fallen trees. The downed trees were not the only issue. Some snapped gas lines sent the overpowering smell of gas throughout the immediate area. There were no explosions, but some residents did evacuate due to the intense odor. One resident says she grabbed her kids from their top floor bedrooms just seconds before disaster.
When it first, the impact, it sounded like a bomb. It was very loud, explosive. We heard glass shattering everywhere. Right after the huge noise, then we started immediately feeling rain and water in our basement, and it was flooding all over the ground, so we knew it was quite bad.
Storms took a grim turn Friday when they tore through the central U.S. The death toll continues to climb after violent storms raced through parts of the Midwest and South. The storms have caused widespread damage in about a dozen states. At least 27 people have died, and some fear that number could rise. Parts of southeastern Kentucky were especially hit hard when the storms moved through Friday night and into Saturday morning. The storms triggered a number of tornadoes. At least 9 of the deaths happened in Laurel County, where the sheriff's office also reported numerous severe injuries. The tornado reportedly touched down just before midnight. The search for victims and survivors is ongoing, and Kentucky 363, one of the highways there, remains closed.
Very thankful, very thankful. It's bittersweet because, you know, you don't want to see your house being torn apart, but I'm very thankful that me, my unborn child, my mom, my daughter, a dog, we're all safe.
I went in the house and I looked out the side window, and when I started on the side window, it looked like all that stuff was coming from up. Instead of, I couldn't see the tail or nothing, but it just lifted like it was lifting everything up. And I turned around, I run back in there, and told everybody get in the closet, get in the hallway, get in the hallway. So I got in the hallway and put my hands over everybody, and it started blowing the windows out. And you talking about praying. I prayed harder than anything I could ever do.
Take a look at this dramatic video out of Somerset, Kentucky, where a bright flash of lightning appears to reveal a possible tornado funnel in the night sky. Fire officials there urged residents to take shelter immediately as powerful storms push through the area, bringing dangerous conditions and plenty of concern. Residents of London, Kentucky are beginning to assess the devastation left behind by the tornado on Saturday. Drone video shows how hard the hit the area was. Homes leveled as far as the eye can see, some reduced to splinters. Preliminary data says that it was an EF2 tornado that hit this area with winds up to 111 miles per hour. Our sister station WBIR went to London, Kentucky and spoke with residents after the storms rolled through.
Yeah, you don't have to spend more than a few seconds here in London, Kentucky to fully understand the scope of the damage. It's flipped cars, it's decimated homes, and it's why it's made folks just thankful to be able to return home to what's left of theirs.
Just watch your step very carefully.
Few have seen their home like this.
Her chair was sitting right here, and the couch was right there.
And even fewer have lived to tell the tale.
I was laying over the top of the toilet, face down over the toilet.
That was Nick Ulrich's Friday night.
My mother had her walker and her wedged in the doorway.
Visiting his 94-year-old mother when an EF3 tornado with wind speeds of up to 165 miles per hour swept up this London, Kentucky neighborhood and nearly Nick with it.
It was trying to lift right straight up. It was lifting, you could just feel it pulling at you. And it's a weird feeling.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear seeing the damage for the first time himself.
You can not only see the destruction, but feel it.
Destruction that's just a small part of the loss Kentucky is feeling right now, with the death toll rising to 19, 17 taking place right here in Laurel County.
We very well could have been too.
Something Nick isn't taking lightly.
Kind of crazy how your fridge is still here.
Yeah, in the freezer.
Still got stuff in the fridge too?
Yeah, there's stuff.
Knowing the only things that are lost.
You think kind of total loss of it?
Yeah, it'll be a total.
Can be replaced.
But it is what it is, and we're still here.
In London, Kentucky, I'm Nady Payton.
Kentucky was not the only place that saw deadly tornadoes last week. It was a terrifying and deadly weekend for residents across St. Louis as well. A powerful EF3 tornado carved through neighborhoods with little warning. You're looking at video taken by St. Louis residents during the storm. 2 tornadoes touched down Friday afternoon, leaving behind a path of destruction more than 8 miles long and nearly a mile wide at its peak. Entire communities are now left picking up the pieces. Mourning lives lost, homes destroyed, and a sense of safety shattered. We are now learning more about the victims, the emergency response, and the growing concern about what more severe weather could mean in the days ahead. Here's a closer look at the impact and recovery efforts now underway in the wake of Friday's devastating storm.
In the midst of a terrifying tornado Friday afternoon,
I was just rushing through the storm.
A frantic Reginald Holmes raced home to the 4500 block of Cote Brilliant in North St. Louis, worried about his mom, Dolores Holmes.
So I was calling her name, everything, flipping over stuff, just, trying to get a response, no response.
The tornado ripped off the roof of their 3-story brick house of 40 years.
Second floor, third floor, completely gone. Back, kitchen, everything completely gone.
Suddenly, near all the fallen bricks, wood, and tossed siding, unimaginable heartbreak.
I just happened to look on the way down to the basement through that corridor. She was like down there, like she was on her way down there trying to make it to the basement. Just lost of words, bro.
In a flash, his 70-year-old mom, the matriarch of their family, the beloved great-grandmother, neighbor who loved to work in her yard, was gone.
She got a pulse. She can still be safe.
Shantae Gibbs, a certified nursing assistant, tried to give her godmom CPR.
I brought back so many people over the last 20 years. You know, and for me not to be able to bring her back, it's devastating.
A devastating loss that's forever changed their lives.
And once the house came down on her, it's like broke her neck. Man, I miss my mama, man.
You know, every day thinking about it's gonna be tough, it's gonna be hard, you know.
Authorities say 5 people were killed in St. Louis County that night, and at least 38 people were injured. 5,000 buildings were damaged, and close to 100,000 people lost power. Mayor Kara Spencer says this was the first fatal tornado in the city in several decades and is one of the worst storms in the city's history. One of the 2 tornadoes was confirmed as an EF3. Well, here in Georgia, we escaped the tornado warnings this week, but we had a few severe thunderstorm warnings ourselves on Sunday morning. Here's a look at some of the damage left behind in Upson County. Mostly fallen trees on roads and cars. Thankfully, we haven't heard of any serious injuries or deaths. Residents are continuing to clean up as the threat of more rain looms for multiple days. Well, it's been a devastating stretch of days across the country, from deadly tornadoes tearing through communities to relentless flooding, swallowing roads and homes, and wildfires forcing families to flee with just minutes to spare. These stories are a sobering reminder of how quickly the weather can turn and how important it is to stay alert, prepared, and informed. Our hearts go out to all those impacted, and we'll continue to follow the recovery efforts in the days ahead. As we leave you today, here's a look at the devastating damage left behind in St. Louis. Stay safe this week.